Hi everyone, welcome back. Looking at the cases when you're doing trapeziums and people get mucked up. So the other day I showed people how to do two cases, and then people had different ones on the worksheet. And what made them different on the worksheet was turning them that way instead of that way. So they're turning them upwards instead of that way. Another thing was to make a big line on the top and a small line on the bottom. And the other one here, which really mucks people's brains up, is when you've got one end of it square but the other end of it's not square. So I'm going to go for the formula people first on this. The two lines, see if that's a right angle there and that's a right angle there. So if you look at the board, if I put a line out here at right angles and I put another line out here at right angles, those lines are parallel, if I could keep them even. So we're talking about the parallel lines. Of these three letters that are in the formula, the most important ones are those two that form the parallel lines. So I call them the railway tracks. So there's the railway tracks, so they're A and B. Doesn't matter which way you call them. Look at these two there. There's the railway tracks, so they're A and B. And those two there, there's the railway tracks, so they're A and B. So we go back to this one here. You've got a half, then you've got to multiply. And why again have we got to multiply? Whenever a number or a fraction is written next to a bracket, you're going to multiply. And then we've got the A and the B, so we're ignoring the 3. So we're looking at the 4 and the 6. So that's the 4 and the 6. And then we multiply by, now some of you will get to a process where you just go, well, if it's not that and that, now my number's got to be 3. But what if I put another number in here, like this I know is about 3.6. So if I had a number there, some people get mixed up and they won't know which number to use. So what am I looking for? Height. So for example, my height, whether I'm laying down on the ground or whether I'm standing on my head or whether I'm standing normal, the height is still always the same whether I'm on my side or not. So on this one, this is called the height here. Why it's called the height is it's how far it is between the railway tracks. So we won't get a railway track with 3 metres wide, but if we've got parallel lines with 3 metres wide, the distance between the parallel lines is the height. And then if you want to, you can put that in your calculator or just write the answer in. If you weren't allowed to use your calculator, Bim dash, you've got to go 4 plus 6 is 10 first. And then you've got the same old problems you always have. A half of 10 is 5, and then you multiply it by 3. So we can make the numbers pretty easy. So if you weren't allowed to use your calculator, we can make it quite simple. Go this one over here, just with the formula again. We've got a half, we've got another times. This time the A and B are those two, just being turned sideways. And we've got the 3 plus the 5. And then you multiply by the height. Again, one more, keep nagging about it. The height is the distance between the two railway tracks. So I could actually draw this up as 3 centimetres, 5 centimetres and 2. That'd be pretty easy to do. So order of operations, you've got to do brackets first. But hopefully you can just put it in your calculator, especially when the numbers are worse. 3 and 5 is 8 times by 2. I still prefer to go half of 8, but you don't have to. Half of 8 is 4, 4 2s are 8. Or I could have done this. I could have gone, if I wanted to first, I can go 2 8s are 16. The reason I prefer not to do that is the numbers are becoming bigger. So I'd much prefer just to go half of 8 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. So we've got an 8 centimetres squared. One last one. Looks a bit weird because you've got this long line up there and the short line over down the bottom. If I really wanted to make it look weird, I could put this right over that side or right over that side, but we're not going there today. So let's have a look at it. We've got a half times by, now which one of the railway tracks? It's not the 7. That's the distance between the railway tracks or between the parallel lines. So the A is an 8 and the B is a 3. And then you multiply by the 7, which is the distance between them. So this is where it gets a bit yucky. And it's nice if you had your calculator. That one's an 11 and that one's a 7. And you go, well, what am I going to do with that? Most you'll be okay with 11 7s are 77. Then you've got to divide it by 2. Now, of course, we can go through that, but if you had your calculator, it's easy. Can go and do the old-fashioned 2 into 77. 2 into 7 goes 2, 4, 6, goes 3 times. There's 1 left over. Now the big one. 2 into 17. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 12, 14, 16 goes in 8 times, and there's 1 left over. So what's what I do with the 1 left over? 1 out of 2. So if we're making halves, the 1 left over will be a half. If we're making thirds, the 1 left over will be thirds. So the answer is 38.5. If you wanted to, you could write that as 38.5, and that's long enough. I hope that helped.